basically need to create a configuration profile with a very specific set of rules that you were probably previously utilizing with your older scanners, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So this is, so we'd like to set up, so we just want to do a demo of setting up the rules in the Insight portal so that I can show, I need to show my validation team um, how the rule sets are created and how they work.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so she wanted to see more how, just how that works and how we set that up in the Insight portal. So I have it, it's really simple. It is altogether 5 rules. Um, and Bahar, you had done this before with us.
Yep.
So I know before we had, one of the things that we were trying to do was use a data matrix barcode. I think, and we were trying to figure out if there's a way to only take a specific number of characters. Um, I think I have an option that we could do that just ignores the data matrix. It would just be a different barcode, and we'd only want the last 5 digits.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's go ahead and start from the very top, and once we reach this section of the rules, we'll go ahead and get into those. So this is the Insight portal. If you haven't utilized it before, the way that you reach the configuration section in the specific is at the very top, you click on device visibility, and then you go over to configurations. Now, once you're inside of configurations, you're going to see every single profile that you have ever created. You have access to information such as when was the last time you performed a change to that profile in a specific, when it was created, and if you have Insight connectivity to your devices, it's going to even show you how many devices you have applied that profile to. Now, on the right-hand side, we have a couple more options. If you click on the 3 dots, you have the ability to edit these profiles at any given time. You can also just simply delete them. The other 2 buttons within here are deployment methods. So the very first one is downloading the configuration, which basically just gives you an actual file, and you can sideload it into your gateway or your Android device by pushing it into the internal storage of that gateway or the Android unit, right? And that's how you send the configuration. Now, even simpler, you can also just simply generate a QR code or a data matrix that if by pressing on apply via barcode, and this essentially takes you to this screen where you can just, after you have paired your mark scanner to your host device, whether it's an Android unit or the gateway, you just simply scan this QR code, and now the configuration is going to reside on your host device. Anytime that you walk up to that station with a different mark scanner and paired to that device, it will begin utilizing the configurations that that host was holding. Now, if we go over to the section for new configuration, we're going to go ahead and create a brand new one. Are you guys creating this for the gateway or for an Insight mobile connection?
Before gateway.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and leave gateway selected. We'll press on next. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice once you access the configuration profile is that everything is segmented. And this is basically just to allow you to navigate things easier. So we're going to go section by section. The very first one is connectivity settings. And this all pertains to how the gateway is communicating with your PC in a specific. So the very first thing is going to choose what your platform is, whether it's Windows, Linux. In this case, which is it, guys?
Windows.
Okay. And then we have scanner connectivity. Basically, up to how many mark scanners do you want to allow to connect at the same time to one single gateway? So the maximum amount of scanners that you can have is up to 5. concurrent. So you would have 5 people pushing data into one single PC. If you would like to limit this so that you don't actually have issues with 2 people sending data to the same PC, you can simply switch it over to one, and it's going to limit that connection to one mark scanner.
Okay, we're only gonna be using one, so I think just choosing one is fine.
Okay. And one thing that I'll go ahead and just mention within here. So normally when you have the gateway set, you know how if you scan the QR code on top of it, the scanner light is going to turn on green once you have that connection settled. Once you set this to one, because we're setting it as a maximum of one device, that scanner light, instead of being green, is going to be red, just to let you know. It basically indicating that it has reached the maximum amount of connections.
Okay.
Now, custom BLE channel, I won't really go in depth because I don't believe it's an issue that you guys might be suffering of. But basically, whenever you have uh, devices that communicate via Bluetooth, since it functions in the same frequency as Wi-Fi, as the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi frequency, as well as other Bluetooth devices. If you're experiencing any sort of interference, you can have the gateway only function in select channels where your other devices might not be working on. So if your other devices, they don't utilize channel 00 through 02 for whatever reason, then you can disable all other channels for your gateway and just have it communicate through those 3 channels in a specific, essentially allowing you to communicate flawlessly with all your other devices with no interference.
Okay.
Moving on to the integration path. So this pertains to how we're going to ultimately transmit our data to our application in the backend, right? So the first option is USB, which breaks down into 2 options. You're either going to do USB HID, you just connect the USB to the PC, and then it's just going to get recognized as an HID keyboard. You pair your Mark scanner, you're going to be able to output data into any sort of field, whether it's Notepad, Word, anything, right? But CDC is utilized in cases where you need a COM port number assigned to your actual connection, so emulated serial communication. If your software requires a COM port number assigned to your connection, you just simply set CDC. It's going to utilize a driver and it's going to emulate it. You can set the baud rate even within here. But yeah, are you guys utilizing any COM ports in your software, or is it just taking a keyboard input?
Think right now, just from the gateway straight to Excel, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the way what we'd be wanting it doing is we want it scanning and displaying into a Excel workbook.
Gotcha. Okay, USB HID is going to be the way to go then. Because we are selecting USB HID and essentially we're a keyboard, you also have to choose what language your keyboard is. We're just going to leave it as English US. You can even enable utilizing the number pad variant of the keyboard. And then down here we have the character delay. So by default it's set to compatibility, but if we need to increase that later on, we can. Basically, this option exists because a lot of times when you're transmitting data too fast to your backend system and it's not able to receive it, it will be missing characters or it will mix up the data. So this just allows you to slow down the data transmission in order to receive that data properly. But if you guys find it where it's reading it completely fine and you would like to see it a little bit faster, we can just crank that up easily. Um, the very last thing within here is mass storage mode. So the gateways um, can essentially turn into a internal storage device when you connect them to your PC. And this gives you access to that internal file storage of the gateway so that you can push configurations inside, but so that you can also access the QR code that's on top of the gateway. So as you guys have noticed by now, that gateway has the QR code sticker on top, which you utilize to pair. But over time, if that ends up getting damaged or the sticker simply peels off, the internal storage of that gateway itself actually has a file containing that QR code, which you can reprint and put at your station. You can even use that method to like connect the gateways to the back of your PC, and then you just hide the gateway behind the PC so that you don't have it exposed, and then just print out that QR code and glue it somewhere on the computer, and they can utilize that same QR code to pair directly to that gateway. We'll go ahead and leave it to manually. Basically, the two options is it's always going to be a storage device, or you have to activate it manually by scanning the QR code. I suggest leaving it to manually. Otherwise, anytime you connect it to a PC, it's automatically going to open up your file explorer. Moving over to the next section, which is device settings. On the left-hand side, we have the engine settings. Fuzzy 1D processing is already enabled by default. Basically, just allows you to read 1D barcodes that are faded or badly printed easier. The next option is display mode. So this is useful if you're ever reading barcodes directly off of a computer screen or a cell phone screen. Even if you have barcodes that are directly behind shrink wrap. Like if they're in the box that's already in the palette and shrink wrap, that shrink wrap causes a lot of reflectivity. This basically allows you to take that reflectivity into account and read those barcodes. Would you like to enable it or leave it off?
It can be off. It's just gonna be
Okay.
paper or directly on a box.
Gotcha. And then pick list mode. So do you guys have the scenario where you have one box and it comes with a label, but the label has several barcodes on it and you sometimes read the wrong one? Or are your labels pretty much just one barcode?
There are multiple barcodes, but I don't think there should be an issue with them scanning or hitting the wrong one. They're
Gotcha.
not very close together, and they're decent. They're pretty big barcodes.
I see. The reason I was mentioning that is because we have pick list mode as well. So I'm sure that you have noticed that when you press on the index trigger, not only do you have that red crosshair or red dot in the middle, depending on what scan engine you have, but you also have that white illumination in the background, right? So in technicality, if that white background illumination shines over any barcode, it's automatically going to read it. But basically what picklist mode does is it only allows the very center of your red crosshair or red dot to decode a barcode. So that allows you to navigate in between barcodes and always read the correct one.
Okay, we could activate that one actually, just in case. Yeah.
Sure. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, if at any point in time you need to come and make changes to the profiles, you can easily do so. So we'll go ahead and leave it on for now. Moving on to the next section. So this is specifically for the mark display because when you read a barcode, it just echoes the data on the screen. So this is just keep it as is, enable or disable. I don't believe you guys are utilizing the mark display, correct?
No.
At this time.
Okay. The other options we have within here is the scanner illumination. You can crank down that background illumination to, 75%, 50%, 25 in efforts to gain a little bit more battery. On the right hand side, we have the feedback profiles. So feedback's referring to the vibration on your hand, the sound, and the LED lights that turn on anytime you read a barcode or any event happens, right? So you can make those noises, vibrations, sounds longer, or you can completely silence it if you like. You can even go as far as just disabling the vibration if you have any workers complaining about the vibration causing issues with carpal tunnel or with their arthritis.
Yeah, that can all stay normal.
Okay. And then down here we have sleep mode. So this option is kind of important. By default, our scanners go to sleep after 15 minutes of complete inactivity, right? So once they go to sleep, they actually automatically terminate the connection to the previous host device. So whether that was a gateway or an Android unit, it's going to forget that it was connected to it up until you power it on, and then you have to repair it to that station. So if you find it to where your workers a lot of the time have more than 15 minutes of inactivity, where they're not going to be scanning anything, you can come in here here and increase this time so that they don't have to constantly repair to their station. You can set it to 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 2 hours. What do you guys would like to set it to this time?
30 would work.
Okay. And then the very last one is TX power attenuation. Again, I won't spend much time on this one. This is just essentially to reduce the power which your mark scanners are utilizing. And this essentially reduces the distance of your range, of your Bluetooth range connected to your host device. So if you're connected to the gateway, it will effectively reduce its range from 150 feet to whatever you want it to by just simply dropping down the power. But I don't believe you guys have any use case for reducing the range of your gateway.
I think we're good.
Perfect. Moving on to the third section, and I promise we're almost getting there. This last two are pretty quick to go by as well. So zero touch firmware basically allows you to constantly have all of your devices up to date and on the greatest and latest version, right? This all you have to do is you come in here, you enable zero touch firmware update. It's going to ask you when do you want the next update to occur. So you have two options. Either it's going to occur on next reboot, meaning the worker is going to come in at the beginning of his shift. He's going to grab a mark scanner. He's going to pair it to his station, and his gateway is going to tell him, okay, your mark scanner has a firmware version pending. The device is going to download that firmware into the actual mark scanner. And then when the worker takes the device out of his glove and he drops it into the charger at the end of his shift, the scanner that's in the charger is going to recognize that that firmware update still needs to be installed. So it will actually install it while it's charging, essentially causing no sort of downtime for your workers. The next time they come in the morning, they're going to grab a scanner and they're all going to be up to date. Now, in order to maintain all of your devices up to date, you have to maintain the gateway on its latest firmware, because basically the mark scanner firmware is bundled in to the gateway firmware. So if you always maintain your gateways on the latest version, which at the moment, let's say is gateway firmware 2.0, right? The actual firmware version of the mark scanner that's bundled in with that is the latest one, 2.8.0. So by having this latest firmware on the gateway, you also have access to the latest firmware for your mark scanners. But if you were utilizing a previous version, then you only have access to that specific version of the mark scanner. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Or
Would you like to have it on next reboot? And then, sorry, the other option I completely forgot to mention it is immediate leave available. Basically, as soon as you pair it to the gateway, it recognizes that it has a firmware update pending, and it does it immediately. But if that's occurring at the beginning of the shift of your worker, then your worker is going to have to grab a different device because it takes like 5 to 10 minutes to finish up that firmware version.
yeah, I think we'd want to stick with reboot.
On next reboot, awesome. Now, we'll move on to the symbology settings. So I believe we were actually talking about the SaveLink data matrix earlier, if I understood that correctly. So basically here we have a list of every single symbology that support it, which is all of the popular 1D symbologies and 2D symbologies. Each symbology, as you can see, has its own set of specific rules. Like for example, UPCA, right? It has the ability to transmit a check digit. So does code 39, but data matrix doesn't. So what sort of, do you guys know what rules or more so in the specific, what settings you're going to be utilizing for any of the symbologies?
All of them, before it was a mix of just a normal barcode plus a data matrix. This one, we'd be leaving out the data matrix. So just be normal barcodes.
Gotcha. So you basically never want to read a data matrix barcode at this stations, right? Because if that's so, then we can just simply disable data matrix, and basically when the workers presses on his index trigger and it shines over a data matrix barcode, it's just not going to recognize it at all until
Okay.
you enable this option.
Yeah, all it needs to recognize is just the normal
1D
basic
barcodes.
code. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that works. And then there's other stuff like you wouldn't happen to know like if you need to transmit the check digit if there are UPCA symbologies.
No, it just needs to transmit, exactly what the barcode is reading. Doesn't need to add anything.
Gotcha. And yet, so just to be a little clearer with this example of, so on UPCA barcodes, there are 12-digit long barcodes that are, it's a universal product code, right? So it's on basically any item that you would get at a grocery store. So with that being 12 digits, by default, all scanners only transmit 11 of those digits. The very last one is what's called the check digit. So on your end, if your system is set to recognize that 12-digit barcode is 12 digits, but you read it and it only spits out 11, then your system is not going to recognize it, right? Unless we come and enable this option.
Okay.
But it sounds like it would be best if we go ahead and leave it as is. And if you find during your actual testing, if you find any sort of issues with barcodes where it's not being read or it's missing characters, then at that point we can go ahead and come in here and play around with what options we might be missing. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and leave this section as is. We'll move on to the workflow rules. So here is where we create the actual advanced data formatting rules, essentially to transform your barcode data. If I go back over, sorry, 1 second. Discard. Okay, so in the workflow rules, the very first thing that you need to do is click on the plus sign for add a rule, and then it's going to automatically take you to this screen. So our navigation menu here is actually on the left-hand side, and allow me to zoom in so that you guys can actually see. There we go. That should be better. So on the left-hand side, the very first thing that we have is the rule name. So we'll just go ahead and give this a random name. Usually you want to name it something that pertains to the rule. That way, when you have several rules, you can tell them apart, right? Now, the next section is the trigger. So what's actually going to activate this rule? You can either activate it with every barcode that's incoming, or you can activate it by the action of pressing your index trigger twice. So I'm assuming that this sort of rules, we're going to apply them to all of the barcodes that are incoming. And then from there on, we can go ahead and set conditions that only apply to very specific barcodes. So if once we have selected incoming barcode, you just click on save trigger, you're going to get this success message. And now you can go on the left-hand side, go to condition, click on plus add, and it's going to pop up this little bubble. So this little bubble is right here, already expanded on the right-hand side. It's basically asking us what sort of requirements does your barcode content need to meet in order to have these rules applied to it. You can base that on the content of the barcode itself. You can base it on the length, or you can base it on the symbology. So you can say, apply this rule to all UPCA barcodes, or apply this rule to all barcodes that are 6 digits long, or apply this rule to barcodes that have 3 number ones for the very first 3 characters. So which sort of rule do you guys need to set this time?
So all of the conditions would be barcode length. So
Okay.
it's basically 5 rules and all 5 of them have different lengths.
Gotcha. Okay, so we'll go ahead and set barcode length, and then there's another option that pops up here. Basically, is equal or is not equal, right? So we can say apply this rule to every barcode that is not equal to 6 digits long, or the opposite. For the very first one,
It'd be 6.
6. Okay. And you can either type in the number or you can use this little arrows, doesn't matter really. Now, once you have that set, again, we go to the bottom right corner, we save our condition. And now you can, if you would like to create more conditions and more actions, you can create them within here as well. but it depends on whether you're targeting the same barcodes, right? Because if you set it within the same rule, let's say that you set another length is equal, then that means that this rule is only going to apply to it if the length is equal to 6 or 7 barcodes. A lot of the times it's better if you keep your rules separate. That way you can actually go ahead and manage them separately. Now, the last thing that we have here is the action. So what's actually going to be changed for the barcode itself? You just select barcode transformation, and then we're going to go to operations. So here is where it asks us what do we want to do. Prepend text, which basically means put data before your barcode text. Append text to the end of that barcode string. This is usually utilized to put an enter at the end of your barcode sequence. You also have insert at position, so you can insert a string of data with it, like in between the 4th and 5th character if you wanted to. You can create rules for regular expression that allows you to replace a specific regular expression rule or place a specific range. So let's drop the last characters 4, 5, and 6, and let's replace them with this string. The other thing that's available within here is put in a key combination before the barcode data or after the barcode data. So basically, like if you needed to hit Control S, let's say, or Alt, whatever, you can hit all of those sort of combinations through here. You have like the modifier, you have the ability to select that, and then you have what key you want to select as well. So as you guys can see, you can get pretty in depth with this. What sort of operation are we looking for here?
So with this length equals to 6, we would want it to hit tab.
Okay, so we're going to append text, we're going to text to append, and we're going to hit do we know if it's a horizontal tab or a vertical tab?
Horizontal tab.
Okay, perfect. And you just simply click on it. Now, if let's say that you wanted to add a string within here that's not any of these buttons, right? Like if you wanted to just add the number 1 at the end of every barcode, you can also type into this exact same field with your keyboard. So you can use either the buttons or your keyboard to enter information into here. So we'll go ahead and select horizontal tab. We're gonna save our action, and we're gonna save the workflow rule. All right, so, and then I'm gonna go in here, and so that I'm able to tell it apart, I'll set this to length. Save workflow rule. Okay, and now we can go ahead and proceed to creating the rest of the rules. Would you like me to actually create the entire rules within my profile and then I can give you the QR code, or was that one good enough for demonstration purposes?
It would be a lot easier if we just went through, since it's only 5, and I mean, they're gonna be quick after this. I mean, this saved video this is gonna be really good for if we have to set it up again, but if we just knock it out now while we
Yeah,
have you.
absolutely. No worries at all. Perfect. So what's our second rule going to be? What's the length?
So next will be 19,
Okay, so
and we'll append another horizontal tab.
okay, so we're going to save our incoming barcode as the trigger. We're going to go here, barcode length. We're going to set is equal to, we're going to set this to 19, save our condition. We're going to go to action, barcode transformation operation, append text, text to append, and you said it was another horizontal tab, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Save action, save workflow rule. We're done. We'll move on to the next one. This one is
Next one is 16.
16. And save action, condition, barcode length, SQL 16. Save condition, action,
Be
barcode
another horizontal tab.
Okay. And so one of the things that we would have been able to, like, for example, because we're basically just doing a horizontal tab for all of them, right? The other way that you could have gone about this one in the specific is just creating multiple conditions. So within here we can have, like, if the length is equal to 16, if the length is equal to 6, if the length is equal to 9, and all of them are going to have the same action applied to it. So that's just a different way that you could have gone about it. We'll go ahead and save this one. And actually, let me double make sure that everything was set correct. Yep. All right. And let's go ahead and set our fourth one.
Is 7. This one will append and hit enter.
Okay. So barcode length is equal to save action barcode. And you said enter, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Enter, save action, save rule. Okay. And the next one?
So the next one is going to be a little bit different. This one will be 23.
Okay. Okay. And our action?
So this one is it possible to set it up to where it is only going to write the last 5 characters of the barcode?
Yes. So uh let me so let's say this is barcode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16,
I'm saying it's a pair.
21, 22, 23. Okay, so this is a 23-digit barcode, and you only want to read the very last 5 characters, correct? So in this case, 90123.
Yeah.
Okay. So for this, let me move this over here to the side. So the easiest way that I would go about this would be utilizing replace range. And what I would actually do here is I'm going to set my range start to, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it starts at the 19th character with data transmission. So on ours, we actually have to set out one number before, I believe. So it would be range start from the 18th character. Range ends at the 23rd character. And what we want to replace it with is a backspace. Oh no, actually this would be backwards because we want to start at range 1 and delete all the way to range 17 because we want 18 through 23 to transmit.
19.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you're. So this is 19 through 23rd. Okay. So basically all this is doing is it's transmitting the barcode data. It looks at the first 18 characters, deletes them, and just sends the very last 5. And I'm gonna go ahead and save the action. We're gonna save this workflow rule. And real quick, I'm actually gonna test this on my end, if you guys don't mind, if you have so a little bit of time, just to make sure that you're leaving with the actual rule. So let me go ahead and turn on my scanner here. So for the video's sake, within here, once you have finished creating all of your rules, and sorry, was there another rule that we needed to create, or was that the last one?
This is it. Just the 5.
Okay. So once you have all of your rules created, at the very bottom of the screen, you're going to have the next option. So you just click on next. You're going to give your profile a name. So I'll just go ahead and name this one test for now. I created this one on the 27th. Once you have named it, you can just click on next and you're going to be taken to this screen. If you ever forget, you have the steps on how to deploy this configuration to your gateway. It's as simple as pairing your scanner to the gateway, and then you scan this QR code. You're going to see the gateway LED lights flash blue twice, and it will contain your configuration. So now I'm actually going to apply this configuration to the gateway that I have right next to me. Okay, took that, and then I'm going to generate a 23-digit barcode. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that's 23 digits long. Gonna open up Notepad here on the side. Go down. And now I'm gonna try to read this barcode. Let me cover up this one. There it goes. It's working.
Right. Works like a charm.
Awesome. We'll close this. Okay, perfect. So basically this is your configuration. What I'm gonna go ahead and do right now is I'll just take a screenshot of this, and immediately after the call, I'll go ahead and forward you guys the image so that you can apply it to your gateways and test it out. If we need to create any rules or make any modifications, do feel free to reach out to me, and we can hop on another session and I'll teach you how to set those up.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
That was
thanks,
Absolutely.
very informative.
Absolutely, no worries at all. Is there any questions maybe I didn't answer or anything that popped up during the call that you would like clarified?
Do you guys have anything?
Nothing so
No,
far.
that was great. We
Yeah,
appreciate
I
it.
think that's exactly what we were looking for. So,
Awesome.
yeah, if I have if any questions come up, so I'm just gonna forward this recording, so she can take a look at it. But I think this is exactly what we were looking for. So,